Not cut out for heroics. A Boku no Hero fanfiction written by Ended Flames on AO3. Chapter 41. Heroics Class 1A, now with added Shinso and Midoriya.
Good morning, Hellions. Aizawa sighed. Announcements for this morning. First, Mineta was expelled for attempted sexual harassment during his internships and countless other cases I've noticed in school.
Eraserhead couldn't help but notice the smiles on some faces, especially the girls. Yaoyorozu seemed regretfully happy, as if she didn't want to show her pleasure at her classmates' expulsion, but felt relieved at the same time. Aizawa himself was happy to see that Grape gone too.
Second, final exams begin in 2 weeks. There will be a practical and a written portion on everything we've learned this term.
Aizawa explained, met with groans from the class, especially those who knew they were nearer the bottom of the class like Mina and Kaminari.
If you pass the exam, you'll be permitted to go on the summer camp training we have planned.
Mina whooped, "Summer camp!" Aizawa sighed, but he didn't bother reprimanding her. These kids had gone through a lot already. He'll let her have fun for now.
You'll be expected to continue your training during the summer break. You may do this at home or request use of the school facilities. Finally, 2 students will be filling the gaps left by Mineta and Bakugo. As you know already, they'll be joining us today. Now, do what you want for the rest of the homeroom while I take a nap.
Aizawa promptly wrapped himself up in his sleeping bag and curled up in the corner of the room. Though he didn't fall asleep, he wanted to see how the class would react to their new members. Of course, most of them had already met Midoriya. Some were already friends with him, but Shinso was more of a wild card. His son had said he'd spent the sports festival in the 1A booth though, so maybe he would be less of a wild card than Aizawa thought. Hey everyone! Midoriya waved. Shinso gave the room an awkward smile. Most of the class returned the greeting with a wave or a hello of some kind. Most of the class went off into their separate groups. After that, Midoriya went over to Todoroki. Aizawa had been told what happened during the internship, and the boy was currently exempt from training exercises until he was healed. And Shinso went to talk to Kirishima, which seemed like an odd pairing, but Kirishima was good friends with Midoriya too, and knew his secrets, so it was probably something to do with that. I'm so gonna fail the finals, Ashida whined. You guys have fun at the summer camp without me. I so wanna go. Don't worry, Mina. I'm going to fail with you. We can be fail buddies. Kaminari tried to put a positive spin on it, making some of the class members laugh. I can help you both study if you want, Yaoyorozu offered. We can have a study session at my house at the weekend. I'll get my mother to set up the ballroom. Oh, what tea do you like? A lot of others in Class 1A asked to join whatever revision party Yaoyorozu was planning, until the majority of his class were in on it. Aizawa hoped they wouldn't put too much pressure on her to help them all. She had her own revision to do as well. Hey, can I help out? Midoriya spoke up. Looking over, I'd like to help people study too.
Good problem, child.
Aizawa could definitely see Midoriya becoming part of the class quickly. He could be a big help to the others. Sure, Yaoyorozu smiled. I'd be happy for an extra set of hands.
Um, can I come? What? What the actual fuck? Shinso, Kirishima, and Todoroki all said that at once?
Aizawa was starting to think maybe their friendship with Midoriya was more like a cult. He'd be getting to the bottom of this weirdness. Yaoyorozu accepted them into the study group with a weird look, glad to see that he wasn't the only one who thought that was strange. When Izuku got home from school, he decided to post a community announcement on his channel and his Discord to let the community know that he had finals soon, so the amount of videos he'd be posting might go down. People had reacted on Discord with the plus ultra emojis, along with some of the little hero ones he'd added. He'd promptly ignored the emoji Brad had added of him in a flower crown. It was a picture she must have gotten from the sports festival, with a flower crown edited over it. She added it a while ago with permission from Shinso, who had outright lied and he'd asked him first before teasing him for the next few days. In reality, Izuku didn't mind, but it was still embarrassing that it was an emoji and he felt a piece of his soul every time he saw it. But he didn't tell Brett to take it down, mainly because people had been using it as a fuck you to the quirkist people. So, Midoriya, Shinso. It was the next morning when Kaminari, Mina, and Sero slid over Izuku's desk. Shinso had been standing next to him, discussing different cat breeds and which ones were better. The mentions of their names, though, the pair shifted their attentions to the other three. Yeah? Izuku asked, pushing away the notebook he was using. They'd been doodling cats on the blank page spread. We were just wondering, since, like, you're new to the hero course and everything, have you guys chosen hero names yet? Do you have costumes? Kaminari continued. Yeah, we had to pick our hero names and design costumes before. We haven't got the costumes from the support company yet, though. Izuku explained quickly with an awkward smile. Oh, awesome! What are your hero names going to be? Mina asked before pausing. Wait, Midoriya, aren't you quirkless?
What does that have to do with anything?
Shinso cut in harshly. Nothing! I'm just curious! Mina defended. Yeah, don't worry, bro. Dude, you totally proved yourself during the sports festival. Sero explained as Kaminari nodded along. Even if you hadn't, you were super cool with helping us before that. You're super smart. Izuku wasn't entirely sure how to take that. He'd been overwhelmed simply by the three not turning away or verbally attacking him, let alone telling him it didn't matter that he was smart at all. And was he dreaming? Anyway, hero names! Mina returned the conversation back onto the original track, negating the need for Izuku to stammer out a response to the compliments and reassurance he mentally thanked Mina.
I chose Whiteout. It sounds cool, doesn't seem nearly as ominous as my other options, and sorta describes how my quirk feels like to the person it's being used on. Or so Midoriya told me when we tried it out. Shinzo explains. That sounds super cool! Kaminari grinned, giving Shinzo a thumbs up. What about you, Midoriya? Mina turned to confront the green-haired boy, who looked at the desk in embarrassment.
He knew what he wanted to be his hero name, but it wasn't like he could use it, at least not yet. My hero name is just Izuku, my name. I couldn't think of one. Izuku shot Todoroki a look. His friend smiled back at him. Really, dude? Kaminari asked. You just picked your name? Like Todoroki? Mm-hmm. Izuku nodded. I'm planning on changing it later, when things get sorted. What about costumes? Mina asked eagerly. Can you describe them?
Ooh, we have hero training later, so you'll see them.
Shinzo shrugged, turning to draw another cat in the notebook. The other three this took this as a signal to leave. Well, Mina and Sero did, and they ran off to pester Kirishima about something else. Izuku and Shinzo's costumes were surprisingly similar. Izuku had a simple dark green bodysuit with darker grey accents, wrists and shin guards, and dark grey utility belt around his waist that had space for things like grenades, smoke bombs, and various other handheld weapons. His costumes included a set of smoke visibility goggles that were dark grey and green to match the rest of the suit. Very helpful if he was planning on continuing his previous strategies, and a mask that could be pulled up that was filled with a quality air filter. The best part, though, in his opinions, were the shoes. The support company had included his request for jet-powered roller skates. Unlike Maze, though, they were able to retract the wheels so he'd be able to wear them like normal shoes. Other than the fact that wearing them made him an inch or two taller, he'd get used to it. They were made to fit his extra toe joint like the red sneakers that May had practically torn apart to transform them into the roller skates. Of course, they still had the toggable jets, and when he tested them out, they worked perfectly. Shinzo's costume was black with accents of dark purple. He would have gone with white to match his hero name, except that pretty much defeated the point of blending into the shadows at night, which an underground hero should be able to do. He held a capture scarf similar to Aizawa's resting neatly on his shoulder. It really suited him, and a mechanical-looking mask that allowed him to alter his voice while still being able to use his quirk. They'd tested it in the changing rooms, and when he'd first put it on, it was quite funny actually. His costume overall had been a lot simpler than Midoriya's. He had a similar utility belt, though smaller. His costume looked more like Eraserhead's, simple and comfy looking, but easily to move in and good for a fight. The other boys had commented on both of their costumes with interest in the changing room. Midoriya lit up as he explained the various pieces of support equipment they were decked out in and why they had chosen certain things. Shinzo was quieter, preferring to hang back a little. They had gone out onto the training field, and Izuku's group of friends had immediately gravitated towards him, the three of his friends crowding around him protectively. Midoriya opened his mouth to say something when a booming voice rang out over the group, and Izuku flinched. It didn't go unnoticed by the three.
I am here, ready for another heroics lesson,
All Might boomed, grinning his constant smile while looking over the students. His gaze lingered on the three students glaring at him. The purple-haired one was new. Another student who didn't like him. The hero knew Kirishima had something against him from the start. Todoroki's obvious hatred had suddenly appeared recently, and now one of the new students seemed angry with him as well. The three were huddled together. Kirishima and Todoroki, who was currently in school uniform since he wasn't currently taking part in the physical training due to an injury, hadn't been overly friendly before, Had they? They had never done anything to suggest that they disliked each other, but Todoroki never acted like he wanted friends, nor seemed friendly with anyone, even the few who'd attempted to befriend him early in the year. The three were huddled so close together that he almost didn't notice the shorter boy practically cowering behind them. He was the boy from the sports festival, All Might realized. The green-haired boy he'd rescued from the sludge villain a year ago, and then told him his dreams were unrealistic. Now the same boy was in the hero course. He'd come in second to the sports festival and gotten into the hero course with all while being quirkless. That boy was going to get himself killed. He couldn't be a hero without a quirk. Even heroes who had non-physical quirks and had to fight quirkless like Aizawa or his old sidekick Night Eye had a quirk to level the playing field. This kid was practically defenseless. He might have done well in the sports festival, but he had support from his friends, then his contestants in the final round had probably gone easy on him. It was the only possibility that had made sense. Someone without a quirk can't be a hero. All Might decided he'd talk to the other teachers about it later. For now, though, he continued the exercise. A group exercise where they would have to rescue a dummy hostage from a villain, while making sure that Midoriya was paired with some of the stronger members of 1A who could protect him during the exercise until he could talk to the teachers after class. Chapter 42. A Talk. Izuku knew in theory that All Might would be biased towards him during the hero training. He knew that the man didn't think he could be a hero. He probably thought that Izuku was weak and fragile because he didn't have a quirk. But he hadn't expected the training exercises to be as bad as it was. He'd noticed first when he ended up being paired with Yaoyorozu and Tokoyami, two of the most powerful defensive and offensive quirks in 1A. Originally he'd thought it might just be because he was new. That was before Shinzo got paired up with Mina and Aoyama. It wasn't like they were weak. No one in 1A were weak. But their quirks weren't quite as useful in the situation of the training, nor would they have the ability to protect Shinzo at a moment's notice. He started to notice how much All Might seemed to be babying him. The hero hadn't let the group put much of a responsibility on his shoulder at all. It had ended up with him basically following the others while they did everything, because All Might wouldn't let him participate properly. Izuku quickly became a liability because he wasn't allowed to do anything. Both Yaoyorozu and Tokoyami had tried their best to include him, but they couldn't exactly disobey their teacher. Izuku appreciated their efforts, even though in the end it was useless. He was definitely talking to Aizawa-sensei later today. Izuku knew he wouldn't progress if he was treated like a newborn baby during the training. The actual hero world wasn't like that, and training shouldn't be either. It wasn't like that for anyone else. By the end of the exercise, Izuku found he wasn't scared of the number one hero anymore. He found he didn't want to run whenever All Might was within sight. No, by the end of the exercise, he was seething. He was so angry the classmates in his immediate vicinity exchanged worried looks. Izuku had never felt so angry. Izuku knew he'd changed a lot since Aldera. He knew it was partly because of UA showing him how teachers and classmates should behave differently. How it felt to have real friends. How it felt to have teachers who didn't purposefully misgrade or mistreat him because he was quirkless. He knew that Izuku from a year ago would never have had the courage to stand up for himself against the discrimination like this. Even if he had had the courage, he had no one to go to. No, now he had both the courage and someone he knew would do everything within his power to help. Hey, Midoriya. Todoroki was walking over to him. Aren't you going to change? Are you alright? I can change later, Izuku said with a scowl, and thank you for your concern. No, I am not okay. Midoriya set off at a brisk pace towards the school. He needed to find Aizawa. He was probably in the staff room right now. Todoroki quickly matched his pace, giving him a concerned look. Did something happen? Todoroki asked. Weren't you watching the training exercise? Izuku asked, glaring at the ground. He didn't want to direct his anger at his friend, but he found he had nowhere else to put it. Todoroki shook his head sheepishly. I was only half watching. Izuku sighed. All Might was treating me with a vase held together with string for our entire match. He paired me with people he knew could complete the task without my help, and refused to let me take part whatsoever, most likely because I'm quirkless. At first I thought it might be because I'm new, but he didn't do the same for Shinso, so... I see. Todoroki nodded when Izuku trailed off. So he's discriminating against you. Does he not realize you came second in the sports festival? Apparently that sailed straight over his head. Izuku huffed. He probably thinks everyone went easy on me. That or he thinks I cheated. Todoroki didn't reply to that, but the look on his face told Izuku everything he needed to know. Todoroki had never looked quite so ready to commit murder. They were walking through the halls of UA before one of them spoke up again. It was Todoroki. I assume you're going to Aizawa-sensei? He asked. Izuku nodded. I don't want to let this go on, and if he acted like this today, he'd probably be going to try and talk to someone. I want to get there first if I can. Izuku replied firmly, and they lapsed into silence again. Aizawa had barely finished reading over the message from All Might, asking if he was free to talk after the class was over, when there was a knock on the staff room door. He'd called for whoever it was to enter. He was only one there right now. He was the only one there right now, and the door had slammed open so hard he thought it might fly off the hinges. The person who slammed the door was none other than Izuku Midoriya, with Todoroki standing quietly behind him like some kind of bodyguard. Midoriya was still in his hero outfit, which Aizawa definitely approved of. It was somewhat good-looking and practical, and he was glaring with such an intensity it could rival his own. It was obvious just by looking at the pair that they were both boiling with rage. They both expressed it differently. Todoroki with a slight change of facial expression and icy rage hidden behind his eyes, and Midoriya more outwardly, breathing through his teeth and glaring hard enough to cut through someone's soul. His outstretched hand was still on the door, but it was obvious that something was very, very wrong. What happened, problem child? Aizawa stood up. His voice had lost his usual indifference. Despite what he said, he really did care for his students. Silently he wondered whether this had anything to do with what All Might wanted to talk to them about. All Might happened. Todoroki was the one to answer, while Izuku seemed to have trouble finding the words. Aizawa raised an eyebrow. Aizawa-sensei.
Midoriya spoke, his voice laced with carefully controlled anger. I don't think All Might understands that I'm not a house made of cards that would collapse with a single poke. So this was to do with All Might. Of course it was. That man always manages to cause problems. Aizawa waited for them to continue, even though he already had a pretty good idea of what happened, just from Midoriya, from what Midoriya had said already. Midoriya launched full force into the recollection of the lesson with All Might. He didn't skip over a single detail, telling him what he'd experienced and what he suspected. By the end of the long rant, Izuku understood why his students were furious, because he was too, though he didn't show it. Thank you for telling me about this, Midoriya, Aizawa said through gritted teeth. I was about to speak with All Might anyway. I'll be sure to bring this up. Aizawa was 100% sure that Midoriya understood the implications of his shift in tone because he nodded. Thank you, Sensei. Izuku said, I should go and get changed. Thank you again. With all that, the pair left and Aizawa headed to one of the private rooms to give All Might a lecture on how not to be an asshole. Where did you run off after the training today, Midobro? Kirishima asked him when he finally returned to class. It was the end of the day and almost everyone had left already, though Kirishima and Shinzo met him in the classroom. I went to talk to Aizawa-sensei about how All Might was treating me during the training exercise, Izuku said, quickly shoving his things into his backpack and pulling it over his shoulder. He was quite glad that no one questioned why it was charred. It was an expensive bag and it wasn't broken enough to validate getting a new one. I see. Shinzo nodded. I saw what was going on. I hope Aizawa sorts it out. Izuku nodded, shouldering his bag. Me too. I can't train to be a hero if he doesn't let me take a part properly. And it'll hurt the others too. We should go. Right. Well, yes. Right. Well, yes, Sensei will sort it out. Kirishima smiled, holding the door open for both of them to go through before they headed out of the school together. Aizawa, good to see you. All Might greeted Aizawa as the door closed behind him. Aizawa sighed and raised an eyebrow. I wanted to talk to you about young Midoriya. Funny. I wanted to talk about him with you too, Aizawa replied with a scowl. All Might hesitated at the look on Aizawa's face before continuing. That boy cannot be a hero. He's only going to get himself killed in the field. The job is a dangerous one. You know that better than most. You can't seriously let a quirkless child attempt to be a hero. It's way too dangerous. All Might spoke, looking warily at Aizawa's glare. Yet he placed second in the sports festival and rescued a hero student from certain death. Aizawa raised an eyebrow. How stupid was this guy? The sports festival must have been a fluke. He had been in the first and second rounds, and those battling him must have gone easy. There's no other way someone quirkless could have won. All Might argued. I can assure you that Shinzo and Monoma would not have gone easy on him. Shinzo wanted the place on the podium as much as Midoriya did, and I've trained with Monoma. He was giving it his all. Aizawa countered. Working with others is an essential part of heroics, and a lot more strategy went into those plans in the obstacle course and cavalry battle than you seem to realize. Midoriya deserves his place in the hero course as much as any other student, for reasons you do and do not know. That doesn't change the fact that the real world of heroics is too dangerous for someone without a quirk. Isn't that why you're training them? The real world will be too dangerous for any of the students if they don't receive proper training. Aizawa refused to let his anger show, though inside he was fuming. If you treat any of these hero students like they could be blowing away with a gust of wind, they will never be able to face villains, quirkless or not. Midoriya has earned his place in the hero course, and I don't want to hear about you mistreating him again.
All Might stared at him.
But he doesn't have a quirk to protect him. He doesn't need a quirk, All Might. I'm sure you'll see that at some point.
Aizawa glared at him. He was trying hard not to accidentally activate his own quirk, out of rage.
All Might, I see I will not win this argument. I will be going to Netsu about this. I assure you, Netsu shares my opinion.
All Might turned and left the room, ignoring Aizawa. And he hoped Netsu would be able to talk some sense into this man. Hopefully the opportunity for Midoriya to prove himself would show up soon enough. Meanwhile, Aizawa would probably have to offer him extra training to allow him to keep up with the rest of his class if All Might was going to go soft on him. Chapter 43 Making Deals. It was the next day, a Wednesday afternoon, when All Might decided to talk to Netsu. He'd headed up to the office after finishing 1B's heroics lessons for the day. The blonde-haired student Monoma and the ginger girl Kendo had spent the lesson glaring at him. They hadn't acted like that on the Monday, had they? So what happened between them and now? What had happened was that Izuku and the others had filled him in at lunch on Wednesday about what All Might had done during the training exercise the day before. Monoma in turn had told Kendo, and now they were both mad at the man. He knocked on the door to the principal's office, hearing quiet murmuring from inside before he was told to come in. The hero pushed open the door to be met with a strange sight that had him stopping in his tracks. Midoriya and Natsu were sitting facing each other at the principal's desk. Midoriya had a notebook that he had probably been scribbling furiously in before he had arrived, along with sheets strewn across the desk. They looked like official documents, and a laptop that belonged to Netsu that he had closed, most likely when he had walked into the room. Both of them were staring at him. Why on earth would Midoriya be here? All Might coughed into his hand. My apologies. I didn't realize I'd be interrupting. I'll come back later. That won't be necessary, Netsu chirped. My personal student won't be getting in the way of whatever it is you wish to speak about. Midoriya got back to whatever work he was doing, continuing to scribble down notes and scuffled papers. All Might found himself standing awkwardly.
Well, I came to discuss an issue with young Midoriya's admittance into the hero course, so it may be best to do this in private.
All Might insisted. No, It's fine to speak here. Midoriya is already aware of your issue with him being in the hero course. He warned me you may be coming to see me soon. Netsu smiled. He guessed that as soon as Aizawa disagreed with you, you'd come to speak with me. All Might was a little dumbfounded, not quite knowing what to say. He coughed again and tried to steer his mind back on course.
Right, well, I fear young Midoriya's safety during our heroics lessons. This job isn't safe for someone without a quirk. There are some villains that are just too dangerous. Someone quirkless cannot be a hero.
Yet he placed second in the sports festival? Netsu questioned. The conversation morphed into one reflecting Aizawa's. All Might was beginning to feel like déjà vu. I can assure you that Midoriya is in no more danger than your other students, Netsu told the hero firmly. He may be at a slight disadvantage that comes with the lack of a quirk. However, that disadvantage can be turned into an advantage. Along with that, the proper training will mean he's as safe as he can be in the field.
How could not having a quirk be an advantage?
Midoriya looked up at that, smiling as he answered cryptically. In a way, you're demonstrating perfectly already. Midoriya is incredibly skilled in what he does, and with the correct training, I'm sure he could make an excellent hero, Netsu said. He is also smart enough to be my personal student. I'd like to request you stop doubting his abilities. Midoriya couldn't help but smile at his notebook. Having the principal in his corner was definitely a good move. All Might was stunned, but he sighed.
All right, I see I cannot change your mind. I shall leave then.
All Might? Midoriya looked up from his book. All Might gave him a questioning look. Can we make a deal? Midoriya asked, giving him an innocent look.
A deal, young Midoriya?
All Might pushed. If Endeavor is removed from his place as number 2 hero before the final exam results are given out, you are to properly include me in your lessons. His eyes went wide. He contemplated that it was impossible, was it? Endeavor was practically invincible with such a powerful quirk and a terrifying legal team, second only to his own. Not only that, the commission valued him immensely, and it would take the major public outcry for him to be removed from his position. It was impossible for a quirkless kid to demolish the number 2's hero career, so All Might took the deal. All Might could practically feel Netsu's grin. He wondered if he'd regret that decision, but he couldn't back out now. Midoriya was smiling too. Did he miss something?
Right, I'll be going then,
All Might said awkwardly. Netsu nodded and All Might backed quickly out of the room, leaving Midoriya to finalize his evidence for his video on Endeavor.
Wow! Yo, Momo! Your house is so big!
Mina gasped as Momo led the group through the large hallways of her mansion. Izuku was with Shinzo and Todoroki at the back of the group, mainly taking in every detail of their surroundings. Momo's house was huge and very interesting to look at no matter where he turned. Izuku was sure that Shinzo and Todoroki, maybe Kirishima too, had only volunteered to join in with study sessions because Izuku had asked to help. Most of the less social members of 1A had decided not to come. He was pretty sure Shiro had only decided to tag along because it was Momo running it. He had no experience with romance, but he was pretty sure she had a crush on the other girl. And his friends weren't exactly the best in social situations. Izuku fully expected them both to sit off at the side of the table to do their own work. It was a surprise, since once Momo had them all sat at a banquet table in a giant ballroom, to see them both, especially Shinso, interact with the others. Todoroki ended up joining Izuku and Momo in helping the others when they needed, since he was also one of the top in his class too, even though he only really talked to the people he was more familiar with, namely Uraraka, Ida, Asui, and Shinso. But it was still nice to see his friends being social. That afternoon had gone by quickly. Halfway through the session, Momo had told them to take a break and provided everyone with cakes and more tea. It was the best tea he'd ever had, and he'd have to ask for the brand later. He'd been able to revise some of the final content by teaching the others. He finds talking about things the easiest way for him to organize his thoughts and memorize things. He left with his studying notebooks and textbooks and a smile on his face. He'd promised Mina and Kaminari that he'd give them some more help over the next week, since Momo had already agreed to help out multiple of the others who had attended. Even Todoroki, along with Ida, had agreed to help out Uraraka, as well as that Shinso and Kirishima had agreed to study together. All in all, the study session seemed like a win for everyone involved. It was around 11 a.m. the next day when Izuku, Shinso, and Todoroki met up once again. They needed to get the video out sooner rather than later if the effects were to come into place before their results from the finals were in. That meant it was time to record the statements. They had done Todoroki's part first. He'd already prepared what he was going to say, and Izuku needed to film it. It hadn't been difficult. Well, it was. It was never easy to talk about things like that, especially knowing it would be seen by at least 1,000,000 people. But Todoroki had done well with it, and it had taken a huge amount of time editing it would though. The boy was hell to record with. After they'd gotten Todoroki's statement backed up to a hard drive, Inko had driven the trio to the hospital. They planned to get Rei's statement the same day, as if she was okay with it. Izuku had been filming all the way there, very happy with a new vlogging camera he'd gotten. He promised them he didn't plan on using most of it, if not any of the footage he'd taken on the way. It was just for fun. Psst, Todoroki! Wave to the camera! Izuku giggled. Todoroki huffed and waved for a second before Izuku turned on Shinso, who hid his face with a hand and turned away. Aw, come on, lighten up, guys! Izuku pouted. We're going to be getting rid of Endeavor soon! Hey, we're here! Izuku shut off the camera as Inko parked the car and let them in, soon enough heading to Rei's room. Hello, Shoto. Inko. Midoriya. And you must be Shinso, Rei said with a smile. Shinso nodded while everyone else returned the hello. Todoroki's mother introduced herself to him with a smile and shook hands before a light conversation began between them. Izuku thought it might not be the best to get started into it, especially when there was someone she didn't know around. So he let it be for a while. Inko had happily filled her in on the going-ons on the outside of the world before she'd started asking Todoroki, Izuku, and Shinso questions about school and heroics, their lessons and their friends, and what they did outside of school. All in that, it was a fun conversation. But an hour into their visit, Izuku decided it was probably the best to get down to business. Chapter 44. Getting a Statement. So, what is it your kids want me to do? Ray asked kindly. She was speaking as though this wasn't an incredibly touchy subject, for her especially. Well, after what happened in Hoso, we've kinda decided to go ahead with our plan a lot sooner than we originally thought, Izuku explained. We already recorded Todoroki's statement earlier today, and I was hoping to talk to you a little more before we filmed yours, but I'd like to get Todoroki and his siblings away from him as soon as possible. Ray nodded. All right, I'll do my best to give you what you need. I hate the idea of my children being hurt by him. I wasn't there to protect Shoto growing up. This is the last I can do. The least I can do. Izuku didn't miss how her gaze lingered on Todoroki's scar. He didn't either. It was his fault, Todoroki reassured with a firm nod. I don't blame you at all. Right, she sighed. We just need to record a short statement from you. Izuku cut back in order. Other than that, we just need permission from Todoroki's sibling when we'll be able to finish and post the video. All right, Ray smiled. Izuku was pretty sure it was forced, though he'd said nothing. What would you like me to say? Izuku launched into an explanation of what he needed Ray to tell them. It would only be an overview of what happened to the family, her especially. He wanted to hear about her quirk marriage and how Endeavor treated her and their children from her perspective. He nodded. He told her how she didn't need to go into any more detail than she wanted to, and that he wouldn't pressure her into talking. It had taken another minute for Ray to agree. Izuku knew talking about her trauma would be difficult for her, so he gave her as much time as she needed. When she agreed, Izuku had been quick to set up his camera. He wasn't planning on doing multiple takes on this one. He didn't want to pressure her. He'd only redone Todoroki's a few times because he himself had asked to redo it. I'm going to turn the recording on now, Izuku said. I can cut bits out and edit things, so don't worry about pausing or stopping if you need time to or anything. The flashing light on the camera flicked on, indicating they were recording. Todoroki went over and sat next to Ray as a silent source of comfort. He knew how hard it would be for her, and she took a deep breath before clasping her hands in her lap, beginning to speak. My name is Rei Todoroki. I am Shoto's mother and the wife of Endeavor. Rei began, glancing over at Inko as she spoke. The woman gave her a reassuring smile, and she continued. I haven't seen my family since Shoto was 5 years old, as I've been trapped in this mental hospital after an accident. She looked at Shoto, who smiled at her with a nod, so she allowed herself to continue. I was 18 when Endeavor first paid my parents to force me into a marriage. He wanted to create a child with the perfect quirk, and mine was powerful enough to fulfill his ambition to surpass All Might, so he bought my hand in marriage for my quirk. Izuku, Inko, and Shinzo all stood out of view of the camera, were gasping in shock. None of them had realized that she was so young when it all started. It wasn't long after the marriage that we had our first son, Toya. He had a powerful fire quirk, though his body wasn't built for it, and Enji's training led to severe burns in the end. He passed away because of it. She took a deep breath, quickly wiping the tears from her eyes. We weren't sure whether it was his own quirks or endeavors. Rei's voice cracked, and Shoto took her hand silently, giving her a meaningful look. Izuku quietly assured her, reminding her that she didn't need to say more than she wanted to. Rei nodded, taking another few breaths before preparing to continue. My other children, Fuyumi and Natsuo, both took after me, and ever deemed them worthless to his cause, and neglected them both. They probably suffered the least of my children. Rei nodded before sighing. When Shoto was born, Endeavor was incredibly happy. From birth, he showed signs of being the perfect successor for him. The day his quirk came in, my husband was ecstatic. It was exactly what he had hoped for. He'd dragged Shoto to the training room that day. The training was horrible, he said bluntly. Shoto would. Yeah, it was. Shoto would come out of that room with both burns and frostbite at the same time, not even mentioning the punches and hits. I tried to protect Shoto from him, but I ended up getting hurt as well. It was mainly Fuyumi and Toya when he was around, who would patch Shoto up afterwards, since by that point my mental health was approaching an all-time low. I could barely stand to be around them because they reminded me of him. Toya died not long before Shoto's 5th birthday, Rei said quietly. It wasn't long after that I was sent here, to this mental institution, for reasons I'd rather not talk about. She glanced at Izuku after that, who nodded and letting her know it was okay. Before this year, only Fuyumi had come to visit me, and that was quite irregular. I lost contact with my children and have been stuck here even though the doctors have deemed me as mentally stable as I can be because Endeavor doesn't want me back in the house. I care for all my children. Endeavor has done nothing but hurt us since the beginning, and I hope anyone seeing this video can do something about this, even if it's too late to save us all. Rei finished off by turning away from the camera and taking a tissue from the box next to a vase of flowers on her windowsill and wiping her eyes with it. Izuku shut off the recording and stood awkwardly, not sure what to do. Shoto started a chain of events by hesitantly pulling his mother into a hug. She startled in surprise before wrapping her arms around him in return. Izuku glanced at the others in the room before darting over and hugging them both. When Rei accepted him into a hug, Inko pulled Shinzo over and they joined in too, turning the small family hug into a cuddle pile of family and friends. It wasn't hard to believe that Inko and Rei had become good friends in the few hours they'd spent together, nor was it difficult to see that Izuku, Todoroki and Shinzo's friendship was slowly becoming more unbreakable every day. The group had spent the next hour at the hospital before everyone had gone their separate ways. Todoroki had told Izuku he'd send the footage from the internship and get Natsu and Fuyumi's permission for the go-ahead as soon as he could before heading off towards his house. Inko had given Shinzo a ride to a cafe near where he lived. He didn't want to give them his address because the danger that might put them in if someone was looking for the pro heroes he lived with. And then they'd gone back home too. It wasn't until Inko called Izuku for dinner that he left his room after that. He'd wanted to film as much of the video as possible, while there was still good light, and he'd used a lot of the statistics and classified reports that Netsu had given him access to. He'd just about finished what he could. All he needed now was Todoroki's footage. He'd already sent a quick message saying that his siblings, especially Natsuo, were both on board. Apparently Fuyumi had taken a bit more convincing. She wanted them to be a proper family, but Todoroki had managed to bring her to their side. After he'd added the footage, all he needed to do was to send the video off to Shinzo for editing and sourcing. Overall, he thought he'd done quite well. He thought he'd sleep well that tonight, knowing endeavors would face consequences soon. But apparently the universe had other plans, because just as he settled into bed, his phone pinged with a notification, a DM from Discord. He had those notifications set up with a different tone. Izuku sighed and grabbed it, seeing a DM from someone he didn't know.
Burnt chicken nugget. I've heard from my source that you're trying to take out Endeavor. I have some useful information if you want, though obviously you might not want to trust the future villain, but I'd love to help you if you want.
Izuku stared at the message for longer than he'd like to admit before hesitantly replying. This person had openly admitted that they're planning to be a villain. Maybe he should just report them? A hero would do that, right? But a voice in the back of Izuku's head told him that any more information could make or break, along with the tiny thought that maybe he could persuade them to not do anything stupid. So instead of immediately flagging up the user, he hesitantly sent a reply. Ryoku analyzes.
What info exactly? How do I know I can trust you? And you say you're a future villain, which means you're not a villain yet, which means I can't get arrested for being an accomplice to any crimes or anything, right?
Burnt chicken nugget.
Info about Toya. I won't say more than that till you agree, though. There's not much I can do to prove I'm trustworthy over fucking Discords, though, so you're gonna have to make that decision yourself, and you probably won't be arrested.
Smiley face! Neither Rei or Todoroki really had much to say about the oldest Todoroki's son. Izuku knew it was a touchy subject, after Todoroki had refused to talk about him, and Rei had barely been able to hold back tears. Obviously he didn't press for it, so maybe whoever this was would have some valuable information. Izuku considered the fact that he could be lying or bringing down the whole operation, but Izuku could probably fact-check this guy at some point. Ryoku analyzes. Well, that's really reassuring. Can I at least get some kind of code name or something?
Burnt chicken nugget. Unfortunately, that would compromise my identity.
Ryoku analyzes. If you don't give me something, you'll be known as Nugget for the foreseeable future.
Burnt chicken nugget. You drive a hard bargain, kid. It's Dobby.
Chapter 45. Dobby enters the chat. 11:59 p.m. Head statistician. Hopefully everyone is asleep, but welcome to our chat. Smiley face. Nugget of information.
Why do I get a terrible nickname? Why can't I change it?
Head statistician. I moved purse because everyone else was messing around with them too much. And excuse me, your nickname is the peak of comedy. Nugget of information. Right. Best editor.
Who is this guy?
Head statistician. You should be sleeping. But he's Dobby and he apparently has useful information, so he's here now.
Nugget of information. This is lame. I'm only here to see the asshole get what he deserves.
Best editor.
Okay, cool, you're hired.
Nugget of information.
I didn't realize this was a job interview.
Head statistician. You'll probably find out a lot of strange things here. Sweet dropping frowny face emoji from Key Witness. Nugget of information.
Best editor. Shit, Icy Hot has found the text faces.
Key Witness. Deaf emoji and then the "oh yeah, I did that" emoji. Head statistician.
Did something happen?
Key Witness.
Flip a table in anger emoji.
Nugget of information.
Did you get your keyboard stuck on text faces?
Key Witness. Sad fails and "you got it" emoji. Best editor.
Go get your brother to help.
Key Witness. Crying emoji and sparkles sad emoji. Nugget of information.
He says he can't because Endeavor's home.
Head statistician. How the fuck did you know that?
Nugget of information. When you live with an immature idiot who talks in video game, you'll learn to speak text face.
Best editor. Now how do you know about Endeavor? Nugget of information.
Isn't it obvious?
Key Witness.
Double table flip.
Nugget of information.
Apparently it shouldn't be. First, their nickname is Key Witness in this dumb chat, meaning they're either Ray or one of the Todoroki kids. 2, they have no idea how to use a phone, so most likely Shoto. 3, you literally called him Icy Hot, which is Shoto's quirk.
Key Witness. Happy table flip.
Nugget of information. Well, hi.
Best editor. You need to click the button with the letters on it, Icy Hot. Key Witness.
Oh, hi. I fixed it. Hello.
Head statistician. Okay, well that's good. Why are you guys awake? We have school tomorrow.
Nugget of information. Why are you awake?
Head statistician. Because you woke me up with your message.
Frowny face.
Key Witness. I'm waiting for Endeavor to leave so I can send the footage. From Key Witness. Best editor.
Insomnia. Nugget of information. Do you want the list? statistician. Nope, I don't need your trauma. I am not therapy. Go to therapy, all of you. Nugget of information. Can a legally dead person get therapy? Head statistician. What? Just go to sleep. Best editor. I have so many questions. Nugget of information. Why the fuck am I doing this again? Key witness to take down Endeavor. Nugget of information. Oh, yeah, okay now. Fuck off all of you and sleep. 4:52 a.m. 6:32 a.m. Nugget of information. Why the fuck did you send them all separately? Okay, what the actual fuck? Those look like scenes from a crappy horror movie. What the hell? Head statistician. That's why we're doing this. Best editor. God damn, icy hot. Head statistician. This video is gonna need some heavy trigger warnings. Nugget of information. That's an understatement. Head statistician. So? Information. Nugget of information. Later. Fucking hell, I just woke up. Head statistician. You saw the video. I want this video done by the end of the day. Nugget of information. I'll send it to you before you little shits are out of school today. Best editor. Shit! I forgot about school! Is Icy Hot awake? Head statistician. Oh my fucking god, keyboard smash! At key witness. He's not online. Nugget of information. You guys are idiots. Best editor. Well, thanks for the vote of confidence. Nugget of information. You're welcome. Head statistician. Guys, we can't let Todoroki sleep in. He'll get in trouble. It'll be my fault. Keyboard smash. He went to sleep at 4 in the morning because of me. Best editor. Don't freak out. Head statistician. Oh wow! Wish I'd thought of that sooner! Ooh! Best editor. Okay, calm down. Calm the fuck down. He's fine. He lives with a sentient dumpster fire. I doubt he has the ability to sleep in. Head statistician. You're right. But wait, shit! Endeavor went out on a mission last night. He's still in another fucking city. I saw it on the news this morning. Best editor. Fuck. Head statistician. Does anyone know where he lives? We need to collect him before he's late for school. I'm acting like a concerned parent. Oh my god. Best editor. Well, I have no idea where he lives. Nugget of information. This is more amusing than my roommate disintegrated the bathroom door not out of frustration while our other roommate was inside, so they couldn't get out for 3 hours before the guy who basically babysits us had to warp him out. Best editor. What the fuck? Nugget of information. I only moved in a week ago. Best editor. Holy shit! Head statistician. Guys, we're getting off topic. We need to find out where Todoroki lives. Nugget of information. I'll tell you where he lives if you order me KFC. Head statistic. Why? Nugget of information. Chicken nuggets. Head statistician, if you don't tell me his address, your name will forever be Nugget. Nugget of information. Shit. That's where he lives. Head statistician, thank you. Smiley face. Best editor. Why does the smiley face radiate subtle intimidation? Head statistician, because I'm on the verge of a mental breakdown, smiley face. Now get in the car, bitch, we're going to pick up our son. Best editor. What the fuck? Head statistician. Just meet me at his house in like half an hour. Best editor. Okay, god damn it, I'm coming. Nugget of information. This chat is providing me some great entertainment. Head statistician. Shut the fuck up. This is a dire situation. Best editor. Language, small child. Head statistician. You're only 14 days older than me. Shut up. Nugget of information. I didn't know Sunshine Beam Ryoku could act like this. Head statistician. You too, asshole. We're on a mission. Nugget of information. Okay, LMAO, bye. Head statistician. Big frowny face. Nugget of information. Go rescue your boyfriend. Head statistician. He's not my boyfriend! Keyboard smash! Nugget of information. Oh. Head statistician. Why do people always keep thinking that? I just want him to be not to be late for school. Nugget of information. Sweet dropping face. Okay, I get it. Go save him from the terrible fate he has in store for him. Head statistician. Fuck off! Best editor. LMAO. I'm so saving this for blackmail or something. Shoto wasn't sure exactly what had happened, or what was happening when he woke up quite abruptly to someone jumping on him. It turned out that the person who jumped on him was none other than Midoriya, and he hadn't jumped. He'd been pushed by Shinso. The boy in question was standing smugly a few meters away. Midoriya jumped up immediately and started stuttering and apologizing all while Shoto was staring blankly in confusion. He noticed Natsuo stood in the doorway laughing his head off and glared at his older brother. Sorry, Shoto, Natsuo laughed, barely able to contain himself enough to put on a mocking tone. Your mom here just wanted to make sure you were up and in time for school. The apologies were abruptly replaced with horrified yelling as Midoriya rounded on Natsuo, saying something about how he wasn't Shoto's mother. You sure act like it, Midoriya, Shinso added from the corner, causing Izuku to go red and start spluttering again. Sorry to interrupt, but what on earth is actually going on here? Shoto piped up. Oh! Natsuo laughed. Your friends wanted to make sure you didn't sleep in. Your classes start in like 20 minutes. I guess they were right about you needing a wake-up call. Be glad they came. I would have dumped water on you. Shoto grimaced before shooting all three of them out of the room so he could rush to get ready for school. Bro, Natsuo stared at him when he emerged from the room.
All three of them were sitting at their dining table eating Pop-Tarts.
How the heck do you put on a button-up shirt backwards?
Your tie is worse than mine, Midoriya pointed out before laughing, and your hair's all messed up. Shinzo stifled a laugh by stuffing a second Pop-Tart in his mouth.
Wow, you really act like a mom, Midoriya.
Natsuo laughed, only to get punched lightly in the arm.
But seriously, Shoto, did you just fall into your clothes? You're a mess.
No one noticed Shinzo snap a picture of him before he turned around and went back to his room to sort himself out. The trio ended up being 11 minutes late to homeroom due to Todoroki's wardrobe malfunction. Midoriya was humming the Nyan Cat theme tune as they walked towards the door. It was stuck in an awe of their heads after Natsuo had blasted it obnoxiously loud outside of Shoto's door while he was fixing his appearance.
Now you have it too.
They'd ended up getting scolded by Aizawa, though probably not as badly as they would have if Aizawa hadn't been notified by Shinzo when he went running out of the house with a piece of toast about what was happening. Luckily, the only punishment they faced was detention after school. It wasn't anything major, and they could just use it to study for the finals. Iida's scolding as class representative had been a lot harsher, and Midoriya and Todoroki had needed to subtly remind him that he owed them his life for him to calm down. My favorite part ever. Midoriya and Shinzo had decided to ignore the fact that Todoroki had fallen asleep in the middle of their first period, English, and Izuku had explained to Present Mike that he'd only gotten 2.5 hours of sleep the night before, and he'd decided to let the boy off too. Iida had woken him up once the period had ended, though, and Izuku had happily given over his notes to Todoroki to quickly copy down before the next lesson started. Half listening to his teachers, Izuku began plotting their next steps in completing the video of an endeavor. They had a week before the final exam started, so he'd like to have it complete by then, as soon as possible, since he needed the effects to be in place before they got their results back. Wowee, that was a fun one for sure! Sorry if it was a little messed up in between. I was doing most of the recordings in a new way I tried out today. Anyway, I hope you like it. I love Netsu. He's such a cool guy, incredibly smart, and all hail the Red Overlord, alright? And fuck All Might in this fic. I know there's a lot of Major All Might bashing, and I love the trope. Because, come on, first you tell a child that their dreams can't be achievable and they can only achieve their dreams with your help. Major red flag and manipulation. Fuck that. No thank you. That's why I love quirkless Izuku hero or quirkless villain Izuku tropes so much, because they fuck the standards. Anyway, I hope you have a nice week from now on, or had already, and we'll see each other next time.